They shooting out this motherfucker!
At the tail end of 2002, Nas closed out his first three-peat of albums. I know that some people are going to say that this is his first three-peat, but at best, I Am is a second-round exit. Godson was the perfect segue for him to take a year off and chill. 2 years later, in 2004, he dropped his follow-up album, Street's Disciple. This album would be a double disc, and one that was a long time coming for Nas. He's been wanting to do a double album since 1999, but with the bootlegs of I Am, that ruined the plans for I Am Nostradamus being that first double album. Nas just had a legendary battle with Jay-Z and put out 3 incredible records. So at a time in his career where he can do whatever he wanted, the double album came back into the picture. I remember in the summer of '04 seeing the video for Thieves Theme on 106 in Park and being absolutely blown away. The visuals had a grit to it, the beat was hard. It was the 10-year anniversary of Illmatic, so I'm thinking Nas is going to take it back to that level, similar to what he did on his most recent release, Magic. The entire summer passed and nothing happened, so the single lost some of its steam. 4 months later, we get a new single called Bridging the Gap, and this single changed my perspective on what the album was going to sound like. I knew we were getting a double record, so I didn't put too much into it. I figured there would be enough street records that'd help balance out the project. So when we finally got the album a month later, I felt it was cool, but it was definitely a notch down from his previous releases. I remember talking to my homeboy at the time who's a big Nas fan as well, and he just wasn't feeling it. And although I liked the record, I did still acknowledge the weak points throughout the project. But the strong points really stuck out to me. So I know I probably hold this album a little bit higher in Nas's discography compared to others. Overall, the album debuted at number 5 on the Billboard charts before the third and final single, Just a Moment, was released that following February. The album went gold, which is a notch down from his previous releases, and then it slowly faded into the background. So why did this record fall short? There's a few things I want to look at, but for the first one, we gotta take a step back a year earlier to 2003. While Nas was out enjoying milkshakes, the changing of the guard was happening right underneath his nose. Not once, but twice. The first changing of the guard happened with The Story in New York, where you got the exit of one MC and the entrance of another. 50 Cent's entrance into the public eye tied in nicely with Jay-Z's retirement campaign. With Who's the King in New York being a hot topic in hip-hop culture, on the surface this was a seamless transition. Meanwhile, throughout the year, Nas is quiet, and with the battle between him and Jay-Z simmering down, fans who were only there for that start to dwindle away. The second changing of the guard came with the second coming of the South, with 2003 being the year that leaders of the first coming of the South, Outkast, reaching the pinnacle of their success. We saw a new crop of Southern artists rolling in. As Kanye West pointed out, the success of Bone Crusher is what led the way. This was the year that T.I. dropped trap music, old Houston hits from 1999 were starting to bubble on BET, and then there were ringtones. Ringtones were kind of established for the music industry to help fight against the piracy that was happening in the Napster days. The loops and snippets of popular songs were sold just so you can tell the world who you like musically when your phone rang. So with ringtones in the picture, companies were more gravitating towards some more commercial sounds, and this really drowned out what people would deem out the more authentic hip-hop. And this lasted for multiple years, with artists like Slum Village, Clips, Lupe Fiasco, Ghostface Killah, Scarface, and plenty other albums getting ignored during this time. The airplay and attention was going to the more commercial sounding records, and Street's Disciple was definitely not that. The next reason on why this album fell short has got to be the rollout. Listen to what Salaam Remi says about the intended plans he had for the release of Street's Disciple.
Nostradamus, Stillmatic, Godson came out December 17th, 18th, 13th, like all right a couple weeks before Christmas. So it was like, you know what, we got no songs, let's go out with the album in the summer and change the way the album sounds. We put the record out, I remember we took it up to Flex, and that was there. But nobody said, you know what, that record's crazy. Like, we didn't get that feedback. We got, uh-oh, what's he doing? You know, I remember a couple other rappers even pushing their album back, going, oh my God, he's gonna come with this Thieves theme, like that's hard. Will had the track for Hip Hop Is Dead. He was like, Will kind of did a track, you're gonna laugh when you hear it. Then when I heard it, I laughed. And then everybody goes, oh man, I like Thieves theme better. Well, where were you when we put out Thieves theme? You know.
Because there was no buzz at the time Thieves theme was originally released, I believe that killed some of the momentum of what this album could have been if it would have dropped that summer. I'll get more into detail as far as what I believe this album could have been later on in the video. But before we dive into that, let me go over a few reasons why I feel like this is one of Nas's underappreciated records. The first reason is the exact same reason on why the album fell short, but you have to look at it on the flip side.
How do you feel, the album's been received? by the people in the industry even. It's not exactly, I mean, the whole thing with it earlier was like, it's such a unconventional album. No single was how everybody was talking about it and everything. Do you feel that sort of took away sales-wise, or, you know?
It's possible. You know, honestly, this record I looked at as is like, yeah, obviously you can hear it and tell sales wasn't the point of this album. You know.
A lot of people would view the album being unconventional as a negative, but if you take into consideration the landscape of the music industry at that time, this is a very bold statement by Nas. To make a record outside of the norm when the music industry is changing around you, that says a lot about the individual themselves. This album is the pinnacle of Nas going outside of the norm and not following suit and going with more production of the time. With his marriage to Khalees right around the corner, this was Nas expressing where he was in his life at that particular time. Whether he's reflecting on his marriage with songs like Getting Married, or whether he's tapping into his astrological identity with songs like Virgo. And then of course there's tracks where he's teaming up with his father, bridging the gap in between jazz and hip hop. For me, this album tells me that Nas is a person that lives by his own rules, no matter what everybody else is thinking or doing. The songs I mentioned previously are not even some of my favorites off of the project, but the ones that do stand out to me I would hold next to any one of Nas's higher tier songs any day of the week. And on that note, if I could condense this record into one single CD, because I do feel there are enough cuts on this record to where if it would have been trimmed down, instead of being a double record, this could have been one of Nas's best projects in his discography. So this is what I believe would have been the perfect track list for Street's Disciple. First, we don't need the long intro, so we open up with Message to the Feds. We're gonna keep that energy. That track with the beat switch, perfect. Really listen to that part where the beat switches, he goes in. The next track we roll into Nazareth Savage, and I ain't gotta say nothing. This track is hard. Just like it's placed on Street's Disciple already, it rolls in after a Message to the Feds perfectly. Next we get the first single off of the album, which would have been Thief's Theme. With Thief's Theme sitting at number 3, that would have been perfect placement for the first single. Next up we got the title track with Street's Disciple. This would have been a great follow-up right after Thief's Theme, with it keeping that same gritty energy that we've gotten throughout the album so far. With the next 3 tracks, we would have just followed suit with the first disc, following up with Sekou Story, Live Now, and Rest of My Life. And then we break up the melancholy with the second single, You Know My Style. So we just had a single, now we need something tough. This is when Suicide Bounce featuring Busta Rhymes comes in. And then we close out the album on a sentimental note with Just a Moment featuring Quan. Not to mention Disciple's gonna play as a bonus track. With this track list and that album cover, this could have played out a lot differently if it would have came out this way. But what do you all think? If you had the power to change up the track list, what would you do with Street's Disciple? Or would you leave it as is? Let me know in the comments. Hope you all liked the video. Peace.